What I love about the sisterhood is that we have the ability to support each other in a different way outside of those formal moments, which also tend to be very critical moments.
I think those real, honest, raw conversations are needed.
They are needed. I respect you as a leader. I respect what you bring. I want you to respect what I bring. And I want to share some things with you.
There is room for all of us.
There is room. We are back for another episode. Can you believe we are actually doing this?
It's a little surreal. It's a little surreal.
Launching our podcast.
But we are in an amazing place.
We are. Can we talk about this place?
Yes. Let's talk about it. So first of all, we're in Detroit.
We're in Detroit.
My hometown. Shout outs. What up, doe? For all my Detroiters.
Yeah, in Detroit.
But we are in Detroit in a place called Brix.
Yes.
Brix.
Yes.
And this is an amazing place owned by another one of our sisters.
Yes.
Her name is Micaiah.
Micaiah. Yeah.
And she is an entrepreneur and has amazing, well, first of all, artwork, beauty. I mean, her
gorgeous.
custom interior.
Yes.
We are sitting on all of her wonderful furniture.
Yes.
And she has just been so gracious as a host to us to allow us to come into her space and be a part of it. And, I think it's important to give her a shout out. So if you're in Detroit, please come by Brix, give her support. And thank you, Micaiah, for being all that you are and facilitating this opportunity for Tadra and I.
This space is amazing. It is gorgeous. In fact, as we were looking for locations and Ann sent me the space and I was like, we have to do it there. But it's so fitting because this episode, we're talking a little bit about sisterhood.
Yes.
We're talking about probably some conversations that we don't often have. We don't often talk about the sisterhood amongst Black women and all of the things, the good, the bad, and the ugly that potentially that can come with it.
Yes.
And we really wanted to explore that. We wanted to explore the experiences that we've had. I think, have some reflections on, especially those that have really, where we've been strong in the sisterhood, but talk about some of the truths around some of the scarcity mentality sometimes that we face. Oftentimes, especially in corporate spaces, we are one of a few. And so when you're one of a few, and then others enter, that space, you can either decide to compete and compare, or you can decide to collaborate and, understand that there's room for everyone.
Yes.
There is room for all of us. There's a place for all of us. I will start by saying that I'm grateful for, along my journey, the sisters. I don't want to call names necessarily.
No.
But I can think about every stop, a sister that has come along, even when I've left that space that, and so I want to first just shout out those who have been with us, stayed with us, supported us, walked us through all the things, and love us, just as we are, love us where we were, whenever they met us, love us where we are today, and are cheering us on the way.
Yes.
To where it is that we're going.
So Tadra, let's talk about sisterhood. And, sisterhood has so many places and spaces that it lives in our lives. So there's the girlfriend, that you can call, that can, be there for you, cheer you on, rah, like we are to each other. There's the girlfriend who might be your peer in your work environment, or your boss in your work environment. And we've been in both of those situations too. And then there's the girlfriend that's just out in the world. We'll put her to the side for a second, but these two are the two folks. But let's focus in on like the corporate world, because we don't often talk about sisterhood in that context. And I think, because of what we're talking about and because of our experiences, I think it'd be really good to open that up and just let's talk about it. So, when you think about sisters, we've had sisterhood. And again, we've had situations where we've called upon each other to be mentors, to help us guide us through a particular situation. Um, but let's talk about like the situations where we can do both, where we've had really positive experiences working for other Black women in particular, or working with other Black women, or having other Black women work for us. I mean, then there's been some opportunities where it's been more challenging. And how do we think about that? So, maybe I'll start with a story.
Yeah.
And
Let's hear your story.
you want to
Ann.
hear my
I
story?
want to hear your story.
So I had a wonderful, the very first time that I had another Black woman that was in my immediate orbit, like working day in and day out. Maybe not the first time, but one of the most memorable times was early also in my P&G career. And I had this wonderful woman who was working for me, and she had come in. I think she was probably maybe about a year or two into her role, and she was working for me, and she was struggling a bit, and quite honestly. And we were working on trying to probably some of the same struggles I had had around how do you communicate in this environment and in this place and space that isn't designed for us. And so she was my direct report, as we called them in P&G. I was her manager. And I was really struggling because the last thing I wanted was to see another one of us. We're so few and far between, first of all, in corporate spaces. But to see one of us struggling,
Yeah.
and like the level of, I don't know, just personal, the way it got personal for me to want to see her succeed.
Yeah.
And so, but I saw that she wasn't necessarily thriving. And so I had to give her some really tough feedback in one of her reviews. I had to talk to her. First of all, I had to get clear what was the feedback, because it was, you have to go around and you get 360-degree feedback, and, talk to peers and other people working with her. And I had to get clear on what the feedback was. But I also had to then ask myself, first of all, was this the right feedback for her? And did I know something as another Black woman who had gone through what I had gone through, that I could bring a lens to that feedback for her that would help her understand it, in a way. And so I got clear on what the feedback was, and it was legit feedback. And so I had to deliver this feedback to her. And I remember sitting in the session where I was delivering the feedback. And my goal was to come at it with a spirit of love, a spirit of care, but a spirit of truth, all of those things together. And I remember when I shared the feedback with her, she was taken back. And rightfully so, because it wasn't great feedback. But I remember her going, and all the things that I would have expected to happen for many of us, where your natural instincts turn into, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
What? And she brought all of that, like the questioning, and I was like, oh gosh, okay, I'm her, I've been her.
Yeah.
So let me take this and go through this process with her. So we spent some time, and she's like, well, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with anything, most of what you've said. And, and she was very defensive for a while. And I said, okay, I understand that. I said, I want you to sit with it. I want you to take it in and just kind of and then let's regroup and let me see how I can be helpful. But I still had this job to do as her manager, but I also was her sister, and so this duality that we go through. So anyway, she spent some time in the defensiveness period for a while. And I was like, okay, how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this? And at some point, it turned into we had to go and kind of do a performance plan of sorts. It was like a performance plan light, where we ended up, because the feedback just wasn't improving. And so I had to sit with her and say, all right, you know what? We're going to have to do a performance plan. And she said, and that was kind of sort of the kiss of death, if you will, in corporate America. When you get put on a performance plan, the odds of people moving past their performance plans are like really low.
Yeah.
Once you get put on an actual performance plan, the odds are that you will literally exit the organization. And I knew that. And so I took it very seriously to go to that point. But when we got to the performance plan, and I was like, here's what it is. And I said to her, I said, it's up to you
Yeah.
on how this turns out. We went through it. It was like a 30-day plan or something, and with some very key measurables and all that. And at the end of the 30 days, can I tell you, it was a moment I'll never forget, because I was like, I know the odds are low. The HR team tells you, like, it's likely that they're not going to be successful, all the things. And I was like, but I believe in her. I believe she can do this. And I believe that we together can do it. I'm here to mentor her.
And I want you to win.
And I want you to win. And do you know, she came out of that performance plan. A, she successfully completed it. B, she did it like she completely transformed her whole, not only mindset, but what she was doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you did it, we did it. And now we have another sister who's not on an exit ramp out of this organization. And it was such a powerful moment for me to step into that and to enter that, but to realize that I had an obligation to the company as a manager to make sure that we had high performing employees. But also I felt a personal obligation to her, because this was her career. And I didn't want her to have this blemish on her career. I didn't want her to be unsuccessful with her career. And if she left the company, I wanted her to leave on her terms, not the company's terms. And so she went on to be incredibly successful in her career. She eventually left the company, but she went on to other companies and all of that. But I think that was that moment where I really realized the weight that we have as Black women as we progress through corporate America, not only for our own personal development and success, but for those that come alongside of us, behind us, even sometimes those that are ahead of us.
Yeah.
Because there is a concept where you have to mentor up and share with people. And that was a real awakening, because I had never been so fortunate as to have another Black woman work for me.
Yeah.
Like, we're too few.
Yeah.
And to your, point that you made earlier, like, we typically, in one of our other episodes, we typically work for white men. That's usually the case. Maybe occasionally a white woman. Maybe third on the list might be a Black man, or some other, perspective, an Asian man, et cetera. But we rarely have the opportunity to be sister to sister working together. Unless we're in an environment where it is predominantly Black. And it's such a real thing. Yeah. And I know that many of us have had, and as more of us come into the, corporate world, we have more of these opportunities. Sure. And how do we help people develop? Sure. So that's one of my examples. I've had others, but I think that's one where it was really meaningful to me.
And I'm glad that you were able to walk through that process. It's a really delicate balance, when you're especially because we are so few in these spaces.
Yes.
When you are working with another Black woman, if you're managing another Black woman or being managed by, that balance is really, really important. And finding, how to walk the line between what you need to do in your role and then what you want to do for the person. It's important to be very intentional.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you and I even talked about coming into this episode is I was listening to you talk. I wonder what the assumptions are that we make as we are walking into these relationships. Again, because they are so few and far between, I do think that at times there is a different set of assumptions that we come into, that we bring with us into
our filters.
It's a set of filters for I'm working with a Black woman. And so this is what that means for that dynamic. I think we have to be really, really careful about those assumptions and the filters that we bring in to those relationships. Because it has the ability to put the manager or the person in a tough position.
Yeah.
In terms of how they may be interacting with you. And so I've heard the stories of like, I thought this was what it's going to be, but it's not that. Well, because they may have a different style. They may not have a kumbaya style, and that's not something that you necessarily should expect from them or project onto them.
Yes.
And they shouldn't be penalized
Yes.
because of that, right? So, and so I think we have to think about that in the context of our sisterhood and just what that means for how we come into these spaces and make sure that we're providing the best support. I was thinking about what sisterhood really looks like
Yeah.
when we show up in these spaces.
Yeah.
And I do think that a part of sisterhood in these spaces is honesty
Yes.
and truth. And I think about there've been a couple times in my career where I have worked for a Black woman, managed teams that were predominantly Black or with predominantly Black women a couple of times, and then I've worked a ton with founders and entrepreneurs. So in probably the proportion of my career, I probably had more interaction with Black managers and Black female managers in the workspace just because of
The work that
the work that I've done. But that's looked different at P&G, at L'Oreal, founders, even at Unilever.
Yeah.
But I was working with a team, predominantly Black team, and a predominantly Black women team, female team. And I was really encouraged. I was I'm usually the senior person. So I was the senior person. And I had a person on my team who basically said, I want to sit down. I want to go to dinner with you. I want to sit down and I want to have dinner with you. And they had come onto the team. They had come from kind of through a number of organizational changes and, ended up on my team. And we were really trying to work through like what was the best way to use them and get leverage from them. But I so appreciated this manager that worked for me who was like, I want to sit down and I want to have dinner with you. And I want to share some things with you. I was newer into this particular role at this particular company. And learning, all the things that you have to learn and balance. And I appreciated here's what I love about what you are doing. And we had this relationship. But here's what I love. Here's some things that I think that make sense. Here's some things that may be blind spots.
Feedback.
Here's some things that may be blind spots. If you can put these things in place and these things in place and these things in place to, this will empower us in a different way. And we can go. And it took a lot of courage to say, I want to have this conversation with you, right? But it wasn't someone whispering in the background, having a conversation over here with people, but it was you know what?
I'm going to go directly to you.
I respect you in your position. I respect you as a leader. I respect what you bring. I want you to respect what I bring. And I want to share some things with you. That for me is what sisterhood looks like. It's not an imbalance in the relationship. It's not an imbalance in expectation. It is showing up in the space and offering truth in every circumstance that you can. And I think we discount that. I think I don't think we put enough emphasis on maybe I just need to go. Maybe I need to just reach out and say, can we have a conversation? Can I share with you whatever it is I might be observing? Sometimes I've heard things, in these communities and spaces, the corporate environment, whatever system you're in, there is a formal and an informal system or things that
Network
happen.
and conversation.
Informal network, informal conversations. You hear chatty. You might be in a meeting. You might overhear, during COVID and all that, everything was virtual. We know remote work, and there's still a lot of remote work. But at one point, there was actually a break room and the water coolers and all that. You hear things. I'm really intentional about, hey, sis, let me at least tell you what the chatter is. Now, I don't, might be true, might be not true. But one of the really important things is, and we learned this years ago, is you have to understand the story that is being told about you. You have to understand what is the storyline that the organization is playing back about you. And sometimes that storyline is formal through the feedback process. Sometimes it's not. And we have, I think, a unique position and I would say responsibility. I see it as my responsibility. Say, hey, So I think there is something in the formality of the feedback. I think there is something in the honesty, in the informal feedback. I think there is something in being able to hear from people below you, above you, around you, who are willing sometimes to share information with you that perhaps the formal structure may not be as willing to share until it becomes very critical.
Yeah.
Right. So what I love about the sisterhood is that we have the ability to support each other in a different way outside of those formal moments, which also tend to be very critical moments. We really need to, I would not, we really need to, I would encourage us to figure out how we support one another. It's not about friendship.
Yeah.
We want to be connected, but we may not be friends in these spaces.
That's okay.
But we should be looking out for each other because when you succeed, it then gives the system the confidence that I can succeed.
That's right.
And it's unfortunate that there's such a direct correlation, right, between one of our success and maybe but that's the reality that we live in. And so I want you to succeed.
Yes.
Because when you ascend,
Right.
I know that I can, and they know that I can.
Right.
And so for me, that's a lot of what sisterhood is.
That is so true. I mean, we talk about, if I see it, I can be it, that whole idea. So when you see, I mean, I know I have had a number of times where I've seen a Black woman who has ascended in an organization. I'm like, yes. Because it means that, it's possibilities. Possibility. But, something you said earlier that just also came back in this part of the conversation was this idea around, well, first of all, just being open and truthful and having the conversation, but this idea around assumptions and the fact that we enter a place and we say, oh, well, we're both Black women. You're supposed to know. You're supposed to know what's going on, right?
Right.
And we may not.
Yeah.
And I had a situation like that in my career where I was working in an organization and I was working alongside, there were two of us, two Black women, and we were working alongside of each other, kind of almost in partnership. I had a piece of the business and she had a piece of the business. And we had a situation where, and both of us, we would sit together, we would brainstorm, we talk about how can you be successful doing what you're doing, how can I be successful doing what I'm doing. It was amazing because I was like, oh my gosh, this is the first time in my career I've had this opportunity to sit alongside another sister and really and I went into this going, okay, and we're both going to be wildly successful doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
I want us to both be successful. And we had a situation where the organization went through a change and it collapsed roles and, all the things. And ultimately it became that there was an opportunity really just for one of us or for one role. And it turned out that I was selected for that role. This dates our sisterhood because we talked about this in this moment. But I thought that, some of the things that I was doing to help her and to help this moment and all of this was supporting her. And there was a conversation that was happening underneath the surface that was more about me wanting that job, the single job, and trying to vie for the job and get the job and all the things. And that isn't at all what was happening. And so you remember this, so maybe you want to tell the other half of the story of what was happening, because I think it's a very illustrative piece of this, because it was that moment where I was like, I didn't know the water cooler conversation. And we're Black women, right? And so there was a water cooler conversation even amongst the Black community about what was happening. And And so you should tell the part of that story that you remember, because I think it would be really important for our viewers to kind of understand the nuances in all this and how this happens.
Yeah. And there's a tie to our relationship too.
Yes.
So I remember the situation that you're talking about. I remember that there was a very distinct perception that what you said is that was the, I guess, the water cooler conversation, if you will, or the chatter that was happening. And I don't know that from a chatter perspective, I don't remember the context about the organizational change, but there was definitely, I definitely remember the dialogue and the chatter around you really wanting whatever this role was with whomever, with this new organization that was being created, and having done what you needed to do in order to get that role, even at the expense of who you're referring to as your compadre, and that there was a bit of a sour taste, if you will, around what that meant in terms of your ambition and like what you would be willing to do in order to in order to move forward. So that was I would say chatter mostly. I didn't know you as well at P&G. So, I knew what I saw and I was like, okay, she's tall and she's light skinned.
Yes.
So all the physics, she's light skinned. But we didn't really run in the same circles. I remember I had a social event at my house and you came, and I thought that was really cool. Your sister came, but I was still kind of like, I don't know. She seems cool, but
I'm still feeling her
out. And so then when you hear certain stories, it impacts and influences your perception. So I was kind of like, oh. Well, okay, I'll kind of keep my distance. But we were always very cordial, and then you invited me and another sister, who we're both very, very close. We're both very close to. We weren't as close at the time, into this business venture. This was 2000 and I don't know. It was a while ago. It was a while ago. And you invited us into this business venture. And I remember I was like, oh, that's cool. And our relationship had progressed, at that point. I was like, oh, that's cool. We get into this business venture and we're having to work through all the things. And you are like down the street and around the corner, and we still trying to catch up. Like, okay, now what are the numbers? What's the percentages? Who's the equity? So, but there were some areas that I just wasn't as comfortable with. You were very versed in like these contracts and agreements, and I wasn't as versed, and was probably somewhat intimidated even about having some of those conversations. But that thing is always in the back of your mind, like, what's her real intention? Like, what? Why she asked me that? What you want? Yeah. And so we went through that experience. And I remember we were having a conversation. We had kind of decided we're probably not going to move forward. Like it didn't work out. We're not going to move forward. But there was still for me this tension, this unspoken tension, that I had never articulated, probably because there was nothing to validate it except all the assumptions and the perception and all the things. And so we had this moment of like, I say break down because I was in tears, but it was a breakthrough moment where we got clear. Like I was able to be honest with either whatever insecurities I was dealing with, or whatever the stuff I was dealing with. And you were like, what are you talking about? Like, you were like, I love you, I respect you, I think, and I had to really come to terms with my own, like, where did this come from? Where did this perception come from? Where did these assumptions come from? What is all of this? And we had that moment, and you were like, I am so glad that you expressed to me, because 75% of whatever's in your head is none of that's real. None of that is real. And I want to just put a pin here. It is so consistent with what we do. And what's crazy is it is what I fought, right? So I fought walking into spaces and being judged based on whatever it might have been, the way I looked, my skin, the way I spoke, the way my hair moved. I experienced that all my life. So to then be on the other side of that, like, what are you doing? Like, girl, what are you doing? But we had our time of breakthrough.
Yes.
That was, like I said, 2000, early 2000s. It is 20 plus years later, and we are just as close as ever. And I'm grateful that for me, and I know we have a different look at faith, but I know that God orchestrated that tension and that connection because he knew that we needed each other in a different way. And we have now been able to support each other through career changes, through company changes,
Celebrations.
awards, ownership, courtside tickets.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm really grateful. But that was that I was less mature in allowing the chatter because I didn't have any other information to influence my perception. And I think we have to guard against that and get back to what I said, which is understanding what's true and understanding what's real.
Well, and I thought it would. So first of all, thank you for sharing that part of the story because it was a moment for me too where I had no idea of all of this. And during that time, we harkened back to that situation. You shared, like, this was a conversation. And I mean, we were well past that, like long past that moment.
Years.
And you're like, and this is boom, 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 boom. I was like, whoa, like a ton of bricks. It hit me. And I was like, man. And it was a blind spot for me, you know, and maybe I should have known. I'm pretty intuitive, you know, but I got a little bit of ISTJ, you know, in me, so I don't always have it. But I'm pretty intuitive. But it taught me something really powerful about, like, relationship building and, you know, just when you have the opportunity. But what was really super powerful in addition to that was you and your courage to come and say, like, all of this, like, we're about to just talk about all of this. And I think, I don't know, that was just, it was so meaningful to me. And now I'm going to cry. You're going to have me on the set crying. Lord have mercy. Oh my goodness. I didn't think I was going to cry, y'all. Because I don't cry.
You don't cry.
I don't cry. It doesn't mean that I don't have feelings. I just don't necessarily, they don't manifest themselves in tears for me. I'm gonna hold it together. Okay, you're gonna hold it together. I'm gonna hold it together.
They're not gonna fall.
They're not
just
gonna fall.
fall.
Just
You want to drink
like,
a wine note? Look, so that was a distraction for Ann.
wardrobe.
That was a distraction. That's all right. We're gonna keep right on
We're
rolling.
gonna keep rolling.
We're gonna set this right here.
This is good. This is good. Got me a chance to get, but like that you took the time to have that conversation with me. Like you could have just gone about your business and been like, listen, she ain't on my short list. She ain't in my tribe. All them things I thought were true, I'm still sitting with them. My filters, my this. And you know, that was real. Like that. And we need more of that.
We do.
You know, because again, there's so few of us. There's a lot of us in this world, but there's so few of us in the spaces that we are blessed to be in. And, you know, to have the opportunities and to have the moments, it was so meaningful to me. And it was not just a career or a life.
Right.
It was a human moment. It was a sisterhood moment. It was a life moment. And it just, and I mean, we have those opportunities in so many places. We just happened to go through our moment in, you know, kind of come full circle through this business venture. But there are days every day where people are working together, and we have these opportunities to have these moments, to have these real heart to heart, or even just a truth moment. And the flip side of that would be, one of the things that I didn't say about that situation way back when that caused all this other stuff is I actually shared with my fellow person some of the feedback that was come through this process. As I was being identified as the person to take this role, I gave her some of the feedback so that she heard it from the organization. But I think that was taken in a different context. Really, where I was coming from was, I want you to know what folks are saying so that you can decide. Again, same as that other example. If you want to stay, you want to stay. If you want to go, I want it to be by your choice, not the company's choice, and by conversations. So when I shared some of that feedback with her, I don't know how it was taken, honestly. I don't think it was taken in the spirit in which I intended it. Maybe I didn't deliver it in the right way. I don't know. But what I know was my intention.
Yeah.
And my intention was for her to know
Yeah.
what people were saying to me, so that she was never blindsided
Yeah.
in her time at the company.
Yeah.
And so I think those real, honest, raw conversations are needed.
They are needed. They are,
Period.
and the lesson that I would say that even I would hope people can take from this, because this is not an easy conversation. It's a difficult conversation because you sit in the role, you sit on the other side. Like, this is a very complex discussion. But the lesson that I hope that people would take is something that you said earlier. You said people assume that you know.
Yes.
They assume. And so if your perception is, if you already have a set of assumptions about a person, your assumption is that she's hard, she's driven, she's ambitious, she is willing to exceed at all costs, including me being a cost. Then when the chatter does come, you assume that she knows. You assume that's what
her
Chantel,
MO.
that's her MO.
Yeah.
That's how she operates.
That's how she
So
operates.
this is nothing new. And then you don't take the opportunity or create the opportunity, right? And I think we have to start even there
Yes.
with assuming, because when we talked about this, and again, we talked about it years later, it just so happened to come up. And I could tell that you were genuinely aghast. Like, what? Like, that's not, it's nowhere close to what my reality was. But if there are assumptions in place, then the assumption could be, oh, she knows. And so we have to be diligent and vigilant, actually, is a better word. We have to
Yes.
be vigilant
Yes.
about, the Bible says, guard your heart.
Yes.
You
Yes.
have to be really vigilant about we talked about this before, like what you allow in and what you allow out. But that prejudgment
Yes.
that you are so good at not doing, we have to do that. We have to not judge and sit down and have conversations. You either have the opportunity to get the truth. You will have the opportunity to get the truth.
Yes.
Either your assumptions will be validated,
Yes.
or they will be, what's the opposite word of when assumptions aren't right? Disputed. There you go.
Wrong. Invalidated.
All that. So either your assumptions are right or they're wrong. Find out. And then act accordingly. And then act accordingly.
Act accordingly. I think that's a beautiful way to end this.
Woo! Yes. It was a tough one. You did good.
Thank you.
You did good.
Well,
We needed to have this conversation, and we need to have more of these.
we do.
So I can see us in future episodes bringing some sisters on and having this conversation, because we're better together.
We are better together.
There's room for all of us. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at the top.
Love it. So on that note, y'all, we will be back for another episode
With both earrings.
with both earrings.
We did.
Yay, Tay.
Yay, and.
Bye, y'all.